One of the ways the Bible talks about the good news of Jesus is the ministry of reconciliation. That's how Paul puts it. This is what the good news looks like in a world that's riddled with conflict and people living in fear. We are made right. Wrong relationships, broken, severed relationships being made right. And there's so many ways that happens. We're made right with God, which once was a severed relationship. We're made right with ourselves, which we become severed inside of ourselves and at war on the inside of ourselves. And then we become made right or reconciled with other people. And this one might be the most complex of all, especially in a polarized world. The scripture puts it like this. Bear with each other. This is from Colossians 3:13. Bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive. And here's a really important part. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. If you've been following the series of speaking, you'll know that making peace with yourself, learning how to forgive yourself, learning how to receive forgiveness for yourself will actually equip you to become someone who can forgive others. There's actually a story in the scriptures that Jesus told. It's in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 18, if you want to look it up. It's titled The Unmerciful Servant. It's just a parable about this guy who owed this phenomenal debt. And if you're reading in the scripture, it's an exaggerated debt. It's like he owes $1 billion to the king. And the king basically says, that's it. You're going to have to pay for this with your life. And the servant begs for mercy, says, please, I have a wife, I have a family, like, please don't do this. And so the king does something crazy. He just goes, okay, you're forgiven. You're free. You don't owe me anything. You can just go. And there's this like crazy, it's almost so comical. Everyone's like, no, that wouldn't happen. But it happened. And then this man goes out. And Jesus says this man runs into a person who owes him just like $10. And he says, I want the $10 back. You owe me $10. And the man said the exact same thing he said to the king. I don't have it. I've got a family. Like, please, like, give me some time. Like, please show some mercy. And the servant calls the guards and says, take him into jail until he pays his debt off in time served. And the king hears about this happening. And he calls back the servant and he says, how could you do that? How could you actually do that? And then he enslaves the servant himself. And the parable has so many different avenues, just like every time Jesus teaches, there's so many different things to learn. But there is one thing for sure. It is pretty certain in the story that the servant, when he was forgiven, didn't really receive it. He didn't really receive the joy of it. He didn't receive the freedom of it. He didn't receive the ability then for his interactions with someone who owed him the same to release them from their debt. And this is true in our lives. And scripturally, this is true. Jesus says it over and over again, even in the Lord's Prayer. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. That forgiveness is something we receive in order then to activate in our relationships with other people. Maybe there's someone you need to forgive. Maybe there's a relationship that needs to be right, and the way that it's going to be made right is for you to offer mercy and forgiveness and an opportunity for reconciliation. This is the good news. I hope you do it.